Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the In the Pocket podcast. I'm Max Sturm, joined alongside Xander Cook and Logan Martin. Today, we're going to discuss some of the latest NFL news, updates on those trade requests that we discussed last week, and then we're going to go over the NFC East, all four teams, their ups, their downs from last season, as well as predictions for their upcoming season. So, guys, I want to start off by talking about an extension that happened today. Running back for the Buffalo Bills, James Cook, gets a 4-year, $48 million extension, $30 million guaranteed. And honestly, I think that's a great deal considering he was asking for $15 million a year. Brandon Beane, the general manager of the Buffalo Bills, does a great job kind of compensating, giving him more guaranteed money, but less money overall than what James was initially asking for.
Yeah, I mean, that was a very, very solid deal. They needed to lock up Cook long term. And one thing I actually enjoyed about this sort of holdout is that he was still present in the training camp and the mini camp and everything. And that just goes to show that he really wanted to be a Buffalo Bill for life. And he finally gets that deal done. It's honestly a pretty team friendly deal, other than the 30 million guaranteed. I think that's a lot of freaking money for running back. 30
Yeah,
million.
the most guaranteed to a running back in 5 years.
Yeah, that
It is
is.
a lot of guaranteed money.
It's not going to Saquon Barkley. Like, dude, it's going to James Cook, not Derrick
Yeah.
Henry, not any of the top guys. It's going to Cook. Don't get me wrong, Cook had a tremendous season, probably his best season of his career. And how old is he? Like, what, 27, 28?
I believe he's 25. I think he's young. Somewhere in that range.
So they locked him up for pretty much his prime because once the running backs hit the age of 30, that's when they start to sort of fall off production wise, unless you're again named Derrick Henry. But
Mhm.
I love the deal. They finally got it done, and you can expect big things from him again this season.
Yeah, that huge contract's kind of interesting because if you look at that Bills running back room, that might be one of the most, if not the most dynamic running back rooms in the National Football League. You look at James Cook, a guy who can run the ball, you can stretch him outside in zone, he can receive, he can catch the football and, get some yak. And then you got Ray Davis, who's a bruiser. He's a backup running back, solidified that number 2 spot after how he performed last season in 2024. And then you got Ty Johnson, who Josh Allen came out and said might be the best third down running back in the National Football League. So, that takes down the production, the amount of production that they need to see out of James Cook. You look at the running back position is short-lived in the NFL. Recently, a lot of talks of 5 to 10 years max. We see what happened to Todd Gurley. So just taking James Cook out of third down situations because they have such a dynamic running backs room, can help to the longevity of James Cook's career and ultimately what he can do for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you bring up. And another strange statistic that a lot of people might not believe is James Cook only played 50% of the snaps last year of the offensive snaps for the Buffalo Bills. And honestly, people might say that the extension that he got is an overpay due to that fact. But I think it's smart coaching and game planning by Sean McDermott to keep him out for 50% of those snaps because you can save that longevity. He can play a little bit longer in his career. You know the talent that he has, and you want to be able to preserve that talent over time and stretch it out as long as you can. And they seem pretty confident that in 4 years he's still going to be that guy for them. And like you said, they've got two other great running backs behind him in Ray Davis, who is a very strong runner, isn't the best receiving back, but he can make those catches. We saw that pretty impressive catch versus the Jets last year on a 40-yard bomb where he caught it contested. And then Ty Johnson, like you said, Josh Allen says he's the best down back in the league. We've seen him used, especially in that Detroit game where he had 120 yards receiving on 5 total catches or something like that. He goes down the field. And the one thing I like about this extension is you kind of get a good combination of both of those guys in James Cook, a strong runner and a guy who can go out and receive. And one thing that the Bills really like to do is when other teams show pressure and try and stop Josh Allen from running out of the pocket, they'll just toss it out to the screen, and James Cook's got 15 yards easy because they've sent too many people in, and he's got to just outrun that second level. And so I think they know what they have. They knew they needed to lock him up. James Cook wanted to be there, but there needed to be some sort of negotiation because 15 mil a year, like Xander said, it's not Saquon Barkley, it's not Derrick Henry. You can't warrant paying a guy that much. I think him getting paid $1 million more than Kyron Williams of the Los Angeles Rams is completely fair, and I think this is a great deal for the Bills going forward.
Yeah, I like that point. A million more than Kyron Williams, and Kyron Williams is an awesome running back. He had a great 2023 season. Sort of fell off 2024, but again, there's injuries involved. But he's still a solid running back for the Rams, and Cook had a better season. So yeah, putting him a million over more than Kyron, it makes a lot of sense. Um, but I mean, the guaranteed money, man, that is batshit crazy for a running
Yeah.
back.
So my opinion on that, and you guys can chime in on it after. I think that the guaranteed money is a lot. However, the Bills can get out of the contract after 2 years if they would like to. So they got to pay the $12 million per year for the first 2 years. And if they decide that they want to go separate ways, or James Cook's not putting up the production that he was last year, or even coming up this year after that the 2 years are up, it's only a $6 million buyout, which is not that much compared to some of the other NFL contracts that some of these running backs have been getting. $6 million is not going to be too much for the Bills to pay, especially with good cap space coming their way after signing $660 million worth of extensions this offseason, much of which have been pushed back years and years. They're going to have good cap space. So I believe that overall, this is a good deal. I, as a Bills fan, really wanted him to get signed, but I also didn't like at first the way that he was going about the situation, kind of taking it to social media, being public about it. The culture in Buffalo, they've never, under Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, have never really had this issue. It was the first hold in 9 years for Brandon Beane. So it felt a little bit weird as a Bills fan to have to deal with one of those situations. But that's the modern day NFL. It's a business now. I totally get his side of things, wanting to get paid. And I also do appreciate that he was still showing up to team meetings, film, and everything. He just wasn't on the practice field because he felt he needed to get paid, and now he is. And if we want to go ahead and move on, Logan, some updates on the two trade requests out of the NFC East, the division we'll be talking about later with Micah Parsons and Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, Micah Parsons, Jerry Jones came out and basically said they're not going to trade him, and his comments is all a part of the negotiation process. So Jerry Jones coming out with a very business-like response. Interesting. I feel I can see that. I'm not really blindsided by that comment. It is Jerry Jones. He's had a lot of interesting comments over the last week. But they got to get that deal signed. Jerry also came out and basically said there's nothing holding back the negotiation process. So clearly indicating that it's on Micah's, the ball's in Micah's court right now, whether or not he wants to sign for what Jerry's willing to offer. You look at it, CD Lamb, a top four, top five paid receiver in the NFL, and then obviously Dak Prescott getting $60 million a year, the highest paid contract in the NFL. So you can understand why Jerry Jones has been pretty timid, but as training camp rolls on and we pass week 1 of the preseason, there's only 3 preseason games. This year it's a shorter preseason. The sand in the timer's a lot. It's running out, so they got to figure something out with Micah. But I do think as a Cowboys fan, you should feel a little hopeful knowing that Jerry Jones wants Micah in Dallas, and it seems like Micah wants to be in Dallas as well. So hopefully they come to an agreement.
Yeah. Xander, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Jerry Jones has been known to have these contract holdouts for a while. It's been happening for years, and that just goes to show that he's just a super greedy owner to start things off, but he usually caves in when it comes down to crunch time, and there's no doubt in my mind that Micah will ultimately get signed to that contract extension, and we're definitely going to see it break the bank. He's probably going to get like 42 and a half, 43 million a year, just enough to edge out TJ Watt for the market. And it was honestly really smart on Micah's part to wait it out. I mean, he waited for Myles Garrett to get the extension, which was 41 mil. He waited for TJ to get that extension, which was 42. Now Micah has all the leverage, and he's going to get that record-breaking contract because he deserves it. I definitely think we're gonna see that deal done. I don't think Micah's gonna hold out the regular season because, like we mentioned before, he wants to be a Dallas Cowboy. I'm pretty sure the Cowboys were his favorite team growing up, so he's
Yep.
not gonna want to leave his favorite team. He wants to get that deal done, and ultimately it'll happen. And it's just another classic Jerry Jones contract holdout situation. I mean, we saw it with CD for not long, but we did see it, and then we saw it with Dak for a little bit. It's just classic Jerry.
Yeah, and if you're a Cowboys fan, you've got to be incredibly frustrated with the situation because you know what you have in Micah Parsons. And honestly, that defense, apart from a few other guys, does not really stand out on paper. Obviously, you've got Trayvon Diggs. They've brought in some guys this offseason. But Micah Parsons is the heart and soul of that defense. And I think for him, it's more of a respect thing. He feels like he's one of the best players in the league, not just on defense, but in the NFL as a whole. And he'd be right in saying that and thinking that. 51 and a half sacks, I believe, is what he has through 4 years in his career. Only other player besides Reggie White to have 12 plus sacks in every single one of his first 4 seasons. So I think he just feels like he needs to be paid what he deserves. And I think eventually he will. Is that going to be with the Cowboys? That's where I stand a little bit differently from you, Xander. I think he's already made it very clear that he doesn't want to be with the Cowboys. He said it in his multiple times in his letter that he sent out on X requesting his trade. Whether that's the truth or he's just doing that to kind of get Jerry Jones going, I'm not entirely sure. But the fact of the matter is that the regular season is coming up. If he's going to get traded, he probably wants to be traded here pretty soon so he can get acclimated with a team. But a guy like him is going to get acclimated pretty quick wherever he goes. But the best case scenario for Cowboys fans and the Cowboys as an organization is to go out and sign this guy so that he is there for your season. You have that leader on your team, that guy that knows the defense, can teach these young guys the system. But another thing that came up today is the comments from Jerry Jones, which kind of linked to this in some way. This conversation that we're having a little bit. He said that the Cowboys are like a soap opera, and that the team, when they have controversy, it's a good thing. And it kind of just made me feel a little bit uneasy, like not even as a Cowboys fan, but just as an NFL fan. This guy's treating his team like it's a reality TV show. He's making it seem like the publicity is more important than winning games.
Yeah.
And as a fan of the Cowboys, that would infuriate me.
I mean, you also have to think about the fact that he's the owner as well as the GM, and think of some of the
Exactly.
business decisions he's made. Not only did he pay Dak Prescott, a QB who was injured half the year, most of the year last year, and can't perform in the playoffs, not only did they give him the largest contract, but they did the same thing with Micah that they did with CD. Like they waited and waited and waited until they had to give him 30, something $1 million a year. So as the owner and as the GM, that responsibility falls on you. Not getting these guys signed when they can be, paid a lot less than what they're going to get paid, after a few other guys in the NFL get paid. So that's bad business decision moves by Jerry Jones, waiting too long, couple of these contracts, and then paying arguably not even a top 10 quarterback the highest paid contract in the NFL.
Yeah, and the fact that he's saying his own team is a soap opera, it's like, dude, who created the soap opera?
Right.
You
Yeah.
did.
But he
It,
seems happy about it. He seems proud of it.
it's insane. It's actually insane. And he actually made another comment I think it was yesterday, where he survived type of stage 4 cancer, and
Yeah.
he received some type of medicine and or pills for it, and he ended up being cured. And I'm just scrolling through the comments, and I'm thinking to myself, how many Cowboys fans wish that he did not survive? Like, come on.
Oh, dude.
It's so harsh, but in the social media
It's
world, you definitely see those comments. Like
Oh yeah, for
half
sure.
of
And
them are
it
these
works out.
burner accounts just flaming Jerry Jones. Yeah,
it's not like anything changes. His son is taking over when
right,
that does eventually
right.
happen.
Dude,
Whether
exactly.
his son decides to you
Apple
know,
don't fall
be
far from the
logical
tree.
and use
So
more than two brain cells and hire another GM, right? I
right,
feel like that would be best case scenario,
right.
but it's not like the Cowboys are leaving the Jones family after Jerry Jones is no longer the owner. But overall, just like you said, Xander, classic Jerry Jones all this week. That's what we've been hearing about through this Micah controversy, through all the comments he's made. Uh, Cowboys fans, I actually feel bad for you for the first time in my life. I really do.
Like I'm
And
reading through the comments right now. There's one that says, "Too bad he survived," and then there's another one where it says, "As an Eagles fan, thank you, doctors. We're so happy you're alive, Jerry Jones. Never sell the Cowboys."
That's crazy.
So
that's
it's
insane. Oh my god. Instagram comments are ruthless.
oh, they're brutal. They're brutal.
They do not care. Oh man. Okay. Logan, any updates on that Terry McLaurin trade?
Yeah,
Trade request.
he's just getting wicked frustrated at this point. Things are leaking around camp, inside of Washington that, he's just increasingly growing frustrated with the organization not getting a long term deal done. You look at the top paid wide receivers in the league. You got Jamar Chase, obviously, in my opinion, the best receiver in the league. He's getting paid 40 million.
That's a lot.
What do you think, JJ?
Get us.
I'm
Jettas?
going Jettas because I
Get
guarantee
us.
Jettas had freaking Joe Burrow. Jettas would be putting up over 2,000
Right.
yards this season.
I think it's a 1A, 1B situation. Like, I don't
It is.
totally disagree with
I
you.
was comparing numbers the other day, and I'm like, holy shit,
Right.
Chase.
Jamar Chase would be my number one overall fantasy pick, if that means anything. I think that
Right.
he's got that kind of. I think he's got number one production,
Did you see?
especially and number one potential. Considering that
Right.
JJ McCarthy is going to be the starting quarterback, and we don't really know what we're getting out of him.
I don't know if you watched week one of preseason. Bengals played the Eagles, and the Bengals, had their quarterback and their starting offense go out there for the whole first quarter. And it's interesting to see this whole week one of preseason. A lot of the starters are going out. Pretty much every single game, at least one of the team had their starters on the field, if not both teams. That's what the Bengals did. They put them all out there in the first quarter, and they were piecing up the Eagles' second team defense. I know it's a second team defense, but you got Ringo out of Georgia out there guarding Justin Jefferson. It's like a third and short situation. You got Jamar Chase. I meant Jamar Chase, not Justin Jefferson. Jamar Chase running a 10-yard out route, third and short situation. He catches the ball and just runs by him. Like that, it was bing bang boom bop bing bong touchdown.
Then you gotta
They did that twice. Like
He barely played at all last season, so obviously there's gonna be some growing pains for him. I mean, he barely saw the field.
who's that?
Ringo.
Yeah. I mean, it's still the Eagles' defense. I trust their coaches to get that first and second team ready. It's preseason, so you can't judge it off that. But it was just impressive to see the Bengals roll out there for a whole first quarter and just not miss a single step. Like they looked right on point. I think the problem with the Bengals last year, not to get into the Bengals, but they started slow last year. They didn't catch fire until later, and I think they made an emphasis within that organization to get those starters out there. Let's be hot by September. So. Yeah, so Justin Jefferson second, CD third, DK getting paid $33 million a year. Then you got AJ Brown 32, Amon Ra 30, and then you got obviously Terry McLaurin, who we're talking about. Getting a little sidetracked, my fault, but Terry McLaurin asking for that $30 million range, which puts him in that company.
Which I don't agree with. I think it's maybe 20.
But a lot of that, he had 13 receiving touchdowns last year, and he finally has a quarterback that's going to be in that offense that's going to be there for 10 plus years. And he had 13 touchdowns last year, which is the most in franchise history in a single season. Like, I know he's getting close to 30 in age, but he still has, if anything, he's getting better and better and better, and he just keeps repeating these great seasons with a change of quarterback every single year. I know Max brought that up when we talked about him last time. I 30 million, I agree. That's a stretch, but like without Terry McLaurin, what's this offense gonna do? They improved the receiving core, but without Terry McLaurin, this offense isn't nearly as close to what it was last year.
Because he takes a lot of the pressure off of the other receivers. You got guys double teaming him, so it makes you gotta sign him to that contract extension. I don't know about 30 million, but if he can get close to that, maybe he's willing to sign. But he may say, "No, I want 30 million." In that case, you kind of have to because you have no other receivers outside of McLaurin to actually succeed in the passing game. And one thing I'd like to bring up is that I think it was yesterday or today, he was seen publicly with Adam Peters, the general manager, for the first time since requesting that trade. So maybe we could see a deal pretty soon.
Well, you'd like to think that Adam Peters isn't the Jerry Jones of the
Right.
Yeah,
Commanders. You'd
exactly.
like to think that he genuinely cares about his players and knows what Terry McLaurin's worth and is trying really hard to get this deal done. I think we would have heard more if this deal if they were not close in negotiations. I think they're still trying to figure it out. They know what they have and they know what the rest of the receiving core looks like. And we'll go down the list of those receivers when we talk about the East here in a second. But Debo Samuel is not going to be your number one. I'm sorry, and especially in the shape he's in. Love Debo, but he's not the same guy he was in San Francisco, and he wasn't even the same San Francisco Debo that he had been in previous years last year either. There's a lot to talk about. But I do ultimately think that the deal will get done, and I honestly think that that one will come sooner than the Micah Parsons deal, in my opinion.
I agree.
So we'll go ahead and start talking about the NFC East, and guys, starting with the fourth place team last year, the New York Giants finished with a 3-14 record. And honestly, I expect the Giants to be within maybe two more wins of that margin. I don't see them winning more than 5 games, just based off of their current QB situation. They have Russell Wilson who can make those wow factor plays here and there. He's still a big deep ball threat, but he just doesn't have the skill and the mobility that he used to have when he was on the Seahawks. Um, Going on with Jameis Winston, Mr. 30-30. He's either gonna throw 5 touchdowns or he's gonna throw 5 interceptions, and that inconsistency is not gonna win you games. Even if you do have a good game, you can never guarantee a win with Jameis Winston, but you can guarantee an entertaining game. That is for sure. And then Jackson Dart, the rookie who the Giants decided to draft later in that first round, who looked incredible that preseason game versus the Bills. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But this is a team, guys, that didn't win a single division game last year. And to get up and become real contenders, you need to contend within your own division. And they didn't last year. But some positives for this team that went 3-14. It's hard to pick out these positives, but Malik Neighbors, the rookie last year out of LSU, having 109 receptions and 1,200 receiving yards. Incredible. This guy is already your number one receiver. He's the guy you're going to build your franchise around. He's a great contested catcher. He can get open, get that separation, have those big plays. Overall, fantastic receiver. Whoever comes in as quarterback is going to have their job made a lot easier just by having him there. Rookies Drew Phillips and Tyron Lacey also showed some flashes. I remember picking up Tyron Lacey on waivers in fantasy last year because he was putting up productive numbers. He wasn't like your number one guy, but he was a guy who on bye weeks you'd throw in your flex or in your RB spot, and he'd get you like a solid 10 points. And when they were in the red zone, they force fed him, and he got into the end zone quite a bit. Brian Burns, another great addition last year to that defensive line that's already pretty solid, and got even more solid this offseason. And we'll talk about that later too. And guys, it just comes down to this is a young team. They're rebuilding. It seems like they've been in a rebuild for a while, but they're really starting to build this team up now. Brian Dayball's doing a really good job of getting these guys ready and kind of enforcing this culture that you like to build around these young guys. We'll get to the negatives in a bit, but guys, what did you see as some positives from the New York Giants last year?
Yeah, so last year they went 3-14. I mean, the only positives were maybe the defense late in the game, not really allowing any points, but the whole season was just a freaking disaster from start to finish. So they went into the offseason They signed Russell Wilson, who has probably the best moonball we've seen in the last 15, 20 years.
Mhm.
And then they drafted Jackson Dart and Abdul Carter. And I'm back to what Max was saying. Jackson Dart looked fucking insane against the Bills in that preseason game. I mean, he looked like a veteran out there. Yeah, it was against a bunch of backups, but this is the dude playing his first ever NFL game, and he did it comfortably. It didn't really look like he had any growing pains. And when I'm watching that, I'm thinking to myself, I fucking hate the Steelers for passing up on Dark first round. I
Yeah.
hate that pick so much. But that's besides the point. Defense is stacked. They spent $90 million this past offseason. They signed Polson Adebo and Javon Holland, both who are great corners and safeties. The defense finished 31st in interceptions. So now you're getting guys who can get you those interceptions this upcoming season.
Right.
They finished 28th in turnovers forced. So they shore up that D line. They improve the secondary. Now you're probably going to get even more turnovers forced this upcoming season. They were 24th in yards allowed, and they were 21st in points allowed. We're going to see a big jump in numbers from that group. And the passing defense, their numbers were heavily skewed last year because they were down 17 or more points over 5 times. We're not going to see that this year. That passing defense is going to be awesome this upcoming season. I mean, the one thing I'm going to rave about that defense, and I could talk about them for hours. That defensive line is going to be top 2 in the league, probably number 1 in the league. It's close, but they have that 1 or 2 spot. I mean, you have Abdul Carter, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Kayvon Thibodeau all rushing the passer at the same time. How are you going to block that?
They're going to make it hell for those quarterbacks.
How are you going to block that? You can't. It's going to be fucking impossible. So I can't wait to see that. And then Bobby Okereke has played at a very, very high level at linebacker the past few seasons. I loved that. Or I love him as a player. Honestly, right now the biggest question mark for me is still the offense. They have not that good of an O line. Russ, we're probably going to see him get benched at some point in the season and let Dart sling it. I love Tyrone Tracy Jr. at running back. I think he is going to continue to improve. He had an awesome season last year. I remember his game against Pittsburgh, primetime. He was killing us on the run and in the passing
I
game.
remember that week. Yeah.
Yeah, he was killing us, and yeah, he's going to be a dog in the backfield for the Giants. But yeah, that offense, man, it still scares the shit out of me. So, and not only that, I think they have the toughest schedule in the league. So
Right.
I still think they win another 3 games this season, maybe 4.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. You bring up the defense and the lack of turnovers they created in 2024. What do? They bring in the best defensive player in the draft in Abdul Carter. That's going to be really interesting. You watch him in week 1 in the preseason, he was torching Deion Dawkins. Giving Deion Dawkins fits. And I know you watched that, Max.
Man.
I know you watched that. He was giving him fits, and he played in limited snaps, and he was out there getting off the ball quick. Like, he was getting whatever moves he was. I don't know if it was a certain move, but he was just so quick off the ball. He was, just had that extra step, and he was able to get to the quarterback. If not get to the quarterback, disrupt the pocket and create an errant throw or throwing the ball away. So he looked really good. I know you want to say something, Max, so I'm gonna let you chip in, but he looked really good.
I was gonna say Deion Dawkins is an all-pro left tackle and
Right.
has been for years now, protecting Josh Allen. And like you said, he had a tough time versus Abdul Carter in his limited play. Abdul Carter, I think, had 3 total pass rush snaps,
Right.
3 pressures, 3 QB pressures. So each one was a QB pressure. He got pancaked by Dion on the first one, but he still got to the quarterback and forced Mitchell Trubisky out of the pocket where he made a really great play down the field. But the other 2, Dion got smoked by this guy. Like, I had said this to Xander and maybe to you, Logan, earlier when we were doing our show for college at the end of last semester, but Abdul Carter has one of the fastest get offs that I have
Right.
seen out of a young defensive end in a long, long time. He reminds me of some of the greats with the way that he gets off the ball. It looks like he's going offside, but he's not. He's just that quick. And uh, I see this guy being a generational talent. He could be one of the best in the league and has all time potential, but obviously very early to say that. We got to wait for regular season, but just how he's built and the way and his skill set alone, he has the potential.
Right. You're right. And I completely agree with that. And, how do you create turnovers without drafting a defensive back? You add to the pass rush, and that's what they did with
Mhm.
Abdul Carter. And just going to the offense, I was just thinking about this while you guys were talking, when we first started talking about the Giants. Drafting Jackson Dart might have saved Brian Dable a couple years, being the head coach of the Giants. And what I say about that is because I feel like Giants fans were comfortable going into 2025 with Jackson Dart taking that back seat and learning under Russell Wilson, not seeing many flashes, maybe some here and there, but being comfortable with him just looking a little bit promising. Because you saw what he did in college. A lot of people would talk about the offense at Ole Miss. That's BS, man. If you know football and you can play football, you can play football and you know football. So, Jackson Dart has proven even in that week, in that first week of the preseason, it's preseason, but they threw the starters out there. And, Jackson Dart 12 for 19, 154 yards, a touchdown, 8.1 average per attempt. That's pretty solid stats. And, watching Russell Wilson, it's hard to base his performance what I saw in week one. It was a lot of check downs, but I also can't really put too much emphasis on that because he is a veteran, someone who's been in this position many times. As a Super Bowl quarterback, he might not be trying to throw the ball downfield in preseason and create a lot of turmoil going into the regular season. He's kind of fighting for his job after what Jackson Dart just did. He's going to be the starter week one, but I think that performance by Jackson Dart might have cut him down a couple weeks. You're looking at week five, maybe you're looking at week three, maybe even, at the earliest week two. So his performance was very promising. And then you look at Malik Neighbors, 170 targets in 2024. I'm not going to harp on it too much. That's not sustainable in the NFL. To be a great NFL team, you need to have two very good, or great wide receivers. So they're going to have to reduce those targets and find ways to, keep getting them open. So those are my thoughts on the Giants. I got them. I had it written down right here. I have them going 6-11. They got a very tough schedule in the NFL. I feel like 6-11 is a
Wow.
little generous based on the schedule. Um, I have to pull it up, but like I looked through it again. Like I think I had them 5-12 last time we talked about it, but um, keeping in mind that Jackson Dart might really be the starter towards the end of this season might convince me they can take one against the Commanders or maybe take a divisional game later in the season.
Okay. No, that's valid actually. Um, I think my surprise win, and I know we mentioned this before, but my upset win for the Giants is against the Chargers in Week
Yep.
4 at East Rutherford. I like that. I'm very confident in that pick with Russ or with Dart. That defense is just too much for that LA offense, and they're just gonna feast on LA. It's
Not to
a
mention Slater going down with the injury for the
Yep,
Chargers.
months later. So that D line is gonna get to Herbert probably 8 times, 9 times. He's gonna have one hell of a day going up against that D line. He's gonna be in hell that entire day. And like I said, it's in MetLife, and MetLife is known as sort of a player graveyard. So who knows what's gonna happen in that game?
Yeah, I have the Giants going either 3-14 again or 4-13, and the Chargers are one of those games that I have them winning. I
Yes.
really think that that is an upset in the making. We could be totally wrong, and the Chargers go in there and completely smoke them out. But I really don't
Yeah.
see that with the defense that they have and the way that this Chargers offense has run. They rely so heavily on the deep ball, but I think that the Giants defense and their secondary has improved so much that they can stop that. They just need to run some cover three or four, throw that in there a little bit, and they can stop those deep threats. And like we were talking about, outside of Malik Neighbors, who is your receiving threat? Or sorry, no, outside of they signed Keenan Allen and then we got Lad McConkey, but those are really the only two threats for the Chargers. I feel like they have some other guys here and there, but Keenan Allen is not who he used to be, right? And Lad McConkey's great, but they're gonna double him. They're gonna double him or make it his day really hard. And Justin Herbert, I feel, doesn't do too well under the pressure of real good defensive lines. Rashad Slater not being there, being injured this year is a huge loss for them. So I think that the Giants can win that, and then I actually think they go back to back and they beat the Saints. The Saints are arguably the worst team in the league. And then I think that they could go out and beat the Bears. We'll see. I'm really iffy about the Bears. It's so dependent on how Caleb Williams adjusts to having this new offensive line, what we talked about last week, and the upgrades that they have made to them. But I could see that being another potential upset. And then I have them beating the Las Vegas Raiders as well. The Raiders are still building. They have Ashton Genty. They got Brock Bowers, but I don't think Geno Smith is very good under that pressure either, and he's old. So 3-14, 4-13 is what I have them sitting at. Xander, did you have a record prediction for them?
Yeah, I have them at 3-14.
Yeah, 3-14.
I think it's interesting. You think the Chargers are just gonna roll over and lose that game? I think Keenan Allen. I can't wait to talk about the Chargers, but I think Keenan Allen was a huge signing for the Chargers. A big body frame, still an elite route runner. Put him in that slot position. You got to remember he's a slot receiver. Like he's not gonna be running fade balls on the outside. You can put him outside and in, but he's mostly a slot receiver. If you watch him in Chicago, a lot of his routes run from the inside, but he's still a reliable option. I know he's older and towards the tail end of his career, but he's still a guy.
Injury prone.
Especially you bring him in with, but you bring him in with Lad McConkey, who is the number one guy who's going to get double teamed with the rest of that receiving room. You bring Keenan Allen in, and that's a huge difference. You got to worry about a veteran who can still run routes at an elite level.
I don't know. Like the Chargers, like Max said, rely too heavily on the deep ball, and without Slater, that defense is getting to Herbert in probably 3 seconds flat.
Right.
Herbert has to get rid of that ball within 2.5 seconds.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with Joel. They put him they're going to put him at that left tackle position where he used to play. Mm-hmm. So I think that'll still help him out. But yeah, I mean the Giants, like you said, 3-14. I wouldn't. They could go 3-14 just as easy as they can win 2 games. This team's not, that schedule's wicked tough. A bye week in week 14. Tough schedule.
Yeah, not to mention the Chargers also lost Joshua Palmer, who I think was their deep threat. So they're trying to stretch the field, and it's going to be tough for them because now they're going to either send Lad McConkey down the field or one of their newer guys down the field, and I think Lad's going to take on those double teams most of the time. And if they start running deep routes every play and they're playing from behind, I think that the Giants will fall back into a cover 3 or 4, and we'll be able to stop that pretty easily. We'll go on to the draft picks that they have. Yes, we talked about Abdul Carter, Jackson Dart, Cam Scadaboo going to be. I think he's got potential once he comes back from this minor injury that he's fighting. Chauncey Golston as well, the defensive end, and then Javon Holland was a really great pickup for them. But if we have nothing else to say about the Giants, I think we should move on to the Dallas Cowboys, who we've already discussed quite a bit in this podcast episode. They finished with a 7-10 record last year in 2024, and that can be largely attributed to quarterback Dak Prescott missing 9 total games. Some might expect that they go on to win 10 or 12 if Prescott plays. But to me, even with Prescott, they have a wild card ceiling and a repeat season, 7-10 as their floor this upcoming season. It's all injury dependent, not just Prescott, but Trayvon Diggs and that offensive line. And they lost their 2 best offensive linemen to retirement this offseason. So they're like in a mini rebuild right now. They're trying to rebuild that defense, which was not great last year. They got to rebuild that offensive line, which they went out and drafted guys for. But it's really about can Prescott bounce back from his injury again in year 10? Crazy to think that he's been in the league for 10 years at this point. I remember his rookie season and thinking that this guy was going to be the next big thing in the NFL, and he has had some MVP caliber seasons since then. but the asterisk on all of it has been the injuries that he has sustained. And apart from that, on the other side of the ball, the defense struggles so much. They ranked 28th in total defense last year. Their secondary was very banged up, and the other guys that stepped in were average. Their coaching under Mike McCarthy, they were unable to make these effective in-game adjustments to the offense. They played down so much. They were close in these games, but they couldn't adjust in the second half. All but one of their losses last year, the team was down at halftime and was unable to recover. So I think between the quarterback problem and wondering whether Prescott can come back and play the way that he did in 2023, and the defense and their issues, I really don't see them winning more than 10 games this season. 10 at the best, honestly.
Yeah, they got the win loss at 7.5, which is a lot lower in terms of wins and losses than 10. But the two biggest things that I look at is that defense without Micah Parsons. You mentioned it was banged up last year, but let's be real. That defense was depressing to watch. You could throw it all over him. You could run it all over him. Micah came back and had a huge impact. But, without him and even with him in some spots, it was just a depressing defense to watch. You knew that the offense had to come out and score 35, 40 points a game just to be able to be in that game. And then I look at the offense. You got playmakers around Dak Prescott. You got the guys to throw. Even Ferguson at tight end. That's a reliable tight end option for Dak Prescott. The big questions on him and his hamstring. Is he going to be healthy? One of the top stories in Dallas right now is backup quarterback Joe Milton, who they're still deciding if he's the backup quarterback or not with him and Will Greer. And then you look at the offensive line, rebuilt, a bunch of first round picks, and you got Cooper Beebe at the center position, who they obviously have a lot of faith in. That offensive line's rebuilt after losing Tyrone Smith and Zach Martin. But the big thing still, and they've had this problem for the last couple years. And I take this from NBC Sports Boston. I was listening to Chris Sims a little earlier today, and the host of the show, new host of that show today, so my fault, I forget the name. But one of the greatest questions about the Cowboys is, when was the last time the Cowboys were successful and didn't have a good running back?
Yeah,
So,
that's a completely valid question.
and look at that running back room. You got Javonte Williams. Who they just bring in? Miles Sanders. You're looking at 1 and 2, and neither of them are really a starting running back in the National Football League today.
Yeah, both those guys kicked off of their squads this past off season. I think that they do bring some valuable assets. I think Miles Sanders always had potential to be a solid running back, but we saw him in Carolina last year, where he was a little bit. I don't think that he was the greatest running back option for them.
I think
And
Javonte Williams
then
might be one of the most
Javonte Williams.
disappointing options. That him in Denver was tough to watch, man. Reminded me a lot of Najee Harris, like Mr. 2.2 yards per carry. Someone you could trust to just go down there, bruise, and get 2 yards.
Yeah. I think that the running back room, regardless of the names and how well known, how well known they are, despite that, it's not a great running back room,
And it puts
and
so
that's
much
why
pressure on
we were
Dak. So much pressure is on Dak now. With the running
right.
back.
And when we were talking last week about this Micah Parsons holdout, and James Cook before he signed the deal, we talked about the trade there. That's why I thought that trading for James Cook would be a good trade for them, because they need a guy who you can automatically say is your number one. You don't have questions about the ability that they have. We do have questions about Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. They're going to be splitting the reps, and they have different assets, but none of them are a running back one. And like you said, outside of the seasons where they had Ezekiel Elliott in his prime, and then DeMarco Murray when he was really
He was
good,
good.
and then
But the Cowboys weren't really
even
good.
further back.
The Cowboys weren't really good with Zeke. They were good, and then with DeMarco Murray, they were average to good, because that defense was pretty tough. The offense with Dez, Romo, and DeMarco was fun, but
Yeah. And then thinking even further back to their Super Bowl days with Emmitt Smith.
Right.
Those running backs helped open so much in the pass game, and then when they got the ball, they were effective.
Right.
They got those yards that they needed. They ran in scores, and I don't see these two guys being
Right.
running backs that are going to be all too productive for the Cowboys. Um, Plus a new offensive line that just lost two All Pros to retirement. They're going to struggle this year, and that's
That
why I
offensive
said
line's
Penn.
looking nice, man. That they got 3 first round picks. Like I don't want to come out and say like they're
But
going to
they're
be
rookies,
amazing.
Logan. Like
Right.
you can't just say right away that
But they're
they're gonna be
investing. They're
fantastic.
putting a
Right?
lot of investment in that offensive line.
Yeah, and they could very well be a solid group, but it takes more than just the offensive line to have a successful running game. Um, it, I do not see this team offensively or defensively being able to keep up with the other two teams in the NFC East just based on what we're seeing on the roster sheets.
Mhm. Yeah,
And what are your thoughts?
it's been a confusing past year for the Cowboys. I mean, you had injuries, contract disputes, and very odd coaching hire. I mean, Brian Schottenheimer, he was the offensive coordinator last year. He's a respected leader, but who knows if he can lead Dallas to take that next step. I think the idea that the Cowboys will be awful is just wishful thinking. You know, you have a healthy Dak Prescott, that's going to be helpful, and he'll have an improved wide receiver core with George Pickens joining CeeDee Lamb. But you're going to need a bounce back year from Jake Ferguson. He had a down year last year, so in order for that passing game to really develop, he has to get more involved. The running game is still a major trouble spot, like we've mentioned. I mean, Javonte Williams is a low end starter, and others are banged up. The offensive line may not have glaring weaknesses as long as Booker plays well, but pressure will be on Guyton to both get healthy and make a leap. The same could go for BB as well. And defensively, you have that Micah Parsons situation, and that is the biggest headline surrounding this team. But it's still looking likely that a deal is going to get done, hopefully soon. But it's probably going to be before week one. He's not going to. There's not going to be a regular season holdout. Hopefully. Um, and then defensively, I mean, Overshown's injury, by the way, a very major injury, so his health is still worth watching. The linebacking core is thin if he can't get back to recovery. A healthy Bland next to Diggs should help the secondary, though the loss of Jordan Lewis is not helpful. Hooker and Wilson, they're still a capable duo. Um, the Cowboys aren't bad enough to be a disaster. Like last year was that disaster season at 7-10. So, but it's still hard to call them more than a middle of the pack team unless Dak can somehow have another top two MVP year. But my thoughts is that they will slightly improve. I'm saying probably 8-9.
That's what I got him at too.
Yeah,
8-9.
yeah. But let's take a look at some of the positives from last season because we've talked down on the Cowboys quite a bit here. Logan, like you said, the offensive line ultimately has held up uh, pretty well. That's been one of the few bright spots for the Cowboys, not just the last few years, but the last 10 to 15 years, as they've built a very solid offensive line. We give Jerry Jones a lot of crap for what he has done, but he does know how to build an offensive line. So I see where you're coming from. Where you say that offensive line looks solid. Again, rookies coming in, we have to kind of feel that out and see how they adapt to the NFL game as opposed to college. But the guys that are there already, Brock Hoffman, Richards, they showed that they can step up and play on a team that's been known for having a good offensive line. And then additionally, I think that the offense gets set up pretty well and is going to have some help due to the fact that their special teams core is very good. Brandon Aubrey was good for 150 points last year, 85% field goal percentage, and 100% extra point, which the extra point, for whatever reason in the league, has not been as easy the last few years. So many guys are missing that. So to go 100% there and then 85 from the field is quite incredible. I know they play indoors most of the time, but Uh, Aubrey's a very, very solid kicker, and then maybe top five in the league. And
Yeah.
then in the return game, uh, Cavante Turpin is an elite returner. We saw that spin move that he put on against that Washington special team last year, and that kind of just put him like center stage. Like people got to see what he was built like, and he returns. He can get you those extra yards. He breaks tackles occasionally. I think that the Cowboys offense can get set up in prime field position and have to work a little less hard due to what the special teams can give them in the return game. Um, and then if we want to go on and talk about some of the key additions to try and rebuild this team and bring them back up. Obviously, wide receiver George Pickens is going to come in and be a huge help, taking either taking some of the attention off of CeeDee Lamb, which I wouldn't hold out hopes for that, but CeeDee Lamb taking the attention off of him. This is a guy that has an incredible contested catch and can get open and has good separation too. George Pickens is a great wide receiver in almost every aspect as far as skill. I just think that with the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh, Xander, you know this from the last few years, he really didn't have a lot of chances to show how great he was. We know that he's been a locker room cancer, so I really hope that that doesn't uh, continue to be the case in Dallas. He's only on a 1 year deal, right? He signed a 1 year deal, yeah, with the Cowboys. And then additionally, they bring in Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, who we already talked about. Dante Fowler Jr. is a huge upgrade on the defensive line for them. Solomon Thomas, also a defensive tackle.
Mhm.
Tyler Booker from Bama, their draft pick.
Guard.
Uh, Siobhan Revelle from Eastern Carolina,
Yeah.
the cornerback. We talked about how broken that secondary was. They're going out and trying to solve these problems, but I feel like there was a lack of DB signings for them. They went out and got Kyer Elam, which, if you guys remember watching any of the playoff
Torched.
games last year, or if you caught some of the Bills games in the regular season, I'm sorry. This guy was a first round pick. He sucks, man. This guy was getting torched by Juju Smith Schuster in 2025. Are you kidding me? And you go out and sign him, and now he's talking about how the Bills didn't give him a chance to succeed.
Oh, he
This
got
guy
plenty.
was
He got
the
benched.
number two corner for 3 years in Buffalo, and his highlight play is picking off Patrick Mahomes one fucking time in the regular season. This is not a guy that you go out and take to be your problem solver for your defensive backs. That was their big signing in the defense. Oh my god, in the secondary. I can't, man. Kyer Elam, listen, I love the guy as a person.
Yo,
He
you
cannot
sure about
play
that?
defense. I can't. I can't do. I'm like,
Sounds like you say this to
it's
his
really that
face.
playoff loss this year that made me really mad
Yeah.
because
No.
how do you go out and get? We lost Christian Benford for that game. Like that. That was the huge
Yeah.
problem, and we had
He
to
was the
play
guy who
him because
replaced
of that.
Elam last year. Yeah.
It and Elam goes out there and has an all-time loser performance.
Yeah.
It was terrible. And now the Cowboys think that he can come in and take that number two spot while other guys are recovering. Good luck. I don't
Yeah.
even know if he can play in the slot.
Yeah. And I want to touch on two things that you brought up. George Pickens, he's on a 1 year contract. I brought it up to you guys. You know, you talk about a cancer in the locker room. It's a contract year. He's got to put up the stats to get money, whether it's with the Cowboys or somewhere else. He's got to produce to get that contract. Um, so what's that going to do if it's week 3 in the season? He's got 8, 10 targets. You know what's that going to do in the locker room? How's his attitude going to be? That's one concern that I have with that contract and him being in a contract year in his first year in Dallas, and the whole culture is reset. And another thing you brought up, Turpin, dangerous special teams guy. Reports that he's getting reps at running back. We talked about that bad running back room. Be interesting to see if he got some running back reps in the regular season. And he's a man who can create separation, and be interesting to see how patient he can be behind his blocks. An offensive line that they've invested in. Maybe produce a spark in the run game. You never know, especially with a guy who's as twitchy as Turpin.
All right, and then we're gonna move on from the Cowboys because everything about them is pissing me off right now. I'm so
It's their
sorry,
year.
Dallas fans.
It's their year.
Um,
This
going on.
2025 is the year the Dallas Cowboys are winning the Super Bowl.
Oh man, I feel
This
like
is every Cowboys fan.
Are you placing a bet on DraftKings for that?
I'm in purgatory. I hear
It's a
that every
donation.
year. I can't, man. Cowboys fans, I've never been fond of their franchise, but I feel so bad for their fans right now for the first time because I hate their team outside of their fans now. Whether it's the ownership, whether it's these players, whether it's the signings, it's really everything internally with them that makes me so mad. And we're gonna move on to the
Commanders.
Washington Commanders.
Yeah.
Yes, Washington Commanders last year, an incredible turnaround from what they have had in previous years, going 12-5, 4-2 in the division, all behind a rookie quarterback by the name of Jaden Daniels out of LSU, who came in and just shocked the world as to what he was able to do. We saw that CJ Stroud season last year, 2023. What he was doing in rookie year, taking the Texans to the loss to the divisional round, yes, where they eventually lost to the Ravens. And Jaden Daniels comes out and one ups that and takes the Commanders to the NFC Championship, where they ultimately fell to the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, which I think was to be expected. You don't expect the rookie to get to the Super Bowl in his first year. Has not happened in quite some time. But there are weaknesses with this team, and one of those is the rush defense. They allowed 4.8 yards per attempt last year and ranked 29th in that category. And it showed against the Eagles in the title game. Saquon Barkley went for 118 yards and three touchdowns in that game. And Saquon Barkley obviously had an incredible year last year. He's one of the best, if not the best, running back in the game right now. But it's the playoffs, man. You've got to build yourself to be ready for that rush attack, and they simply weren't. They could not really do much with that. And another weakness of their defense, honestly, is the pass rush. Their sack leader has gone on to the Cowboys, Dante Fowler Jr. The linebackers were taking on too much of the responsibility of this pass rush with Frankie Lavu and Bobby Wagner, who Bobby Wagner is still a great linebacker, but he's old and he's not built for the pass rush anymore. And so to have him and the other linebacker, Lavu there,
Luvu.
Luvu, yeah, having to take on that responsibility because the defensive line simply can't get to the quarterback. It makes it really hard to stop those over the middle passes. You're clearing up that middle of the field when those guys are rushing in. You try and have your nickel corners or safeties come up and cover that, but against teams like the Eagles, who are not only good in the rush but also in the pass game, you're not going to be successful when you're leaving the middle of the field open one way or another. And then the offensive line, I believe, struggled to protect Daniels at times. We saw him have to become mobile multiple times, and luckily for them, he is a mobile quarterback. He can run, he can use his feet to gain yards, but we saw what happened with RG3 when he didn't have a great offensive line. And we would hate to see that happen to Jaden Daniels. So uh, the good thing is they hit the home run with Jaden Daniels. He's got all the talent in the world. He's got solid weapons around him with McLaurin, which we'll see if he has Terry McLaurin by the time the season starts or even at all. They've got Noah Brown, who isn't necessarily a top wide receiver, but he showed a lot of promise last year. Was good in the red zone. They go out and they pick up Michael Gallup, who I think in Dallas was a great wide receiver three, and I think he'll serve as that in Washington as well. And then they've got Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler out of the backfield, who are also not great or running back one options, but I think they're in a better situation than Dallas is as far as the pass or the rush game and the passing game out of the backfield is concerned. Um, they need to have a defensive turnaround this year with the linebacking, starting with the linebacking core. They need to be able to stay home a little bit more, not have to rush. Guys, I think this is a team that went out and really solved the problems that they had with their roster through pickups and through the draft. But I want to know what you guys think are the weaknesses to this incredible Washington Commanders team.
Yeah, they went out and obviously they got Jane Daniels, who is going to be the franchise quarterback for the years to come. Finally, we mentioned a little bit earlier in the podcast. Finally got a quarterback who is very promising. RG3 was promising, but still questions about how he can throw the football. Jane Daniels might be the best thrower out of that draft class. Not to mention he led the team in rushing yards last year. But what's an interesting stat is not only did he lead the team in rushing yards, he had 891 yards, six per carry. Second, Brian Robertson Jr., 799 yards, 4.3 a carry. Eckler, 4.8 a carry. Nichols, 4.7 a carry. Rodriguez Jr., 4.9 a carry. Even Marcus Mariota, 5.1 a carry. De'Ami Brown, 8.7 a carry. So you're talking about a running back room or a room of guys who ran the football for Washington who averaged at the very least 4.3 yards a carry, which is extremely good. We've seen teams that have, their top running backs getting under 4 yards a carry. So obviously Cliff Kingsbury, who's known for his offensive schemes, he was great in Texas Tech. You saw what he could do offensively with Kyler Murray. Now here in Washington, and Daniels was on a short leash, and you saw that leash get longer and longer and longer as that year goes. The offensive, the pass production was promising. They got Josh Connolly out of the draft to protect Daniels. And then you're looking at a running back room where there was flashes in that running game. You're not going to see any eye-popping stats, but it was consistent. A lot of tosses and pulling guards and different blocking schemes that when you're watching like on prime time, it looked pretty exotic. So there's definitely promise, something to build off of, especially after what happened in 2024. But I think they could finish second in this division and still be 9-8. That's what this division kind of sums up to be. It could be one of those types of divisions again. I got them going 10-7, but what I mean, they could very well go 9-8 and be second.
Okay. Well, there's high expectations after last season's finish. I loved their free agency. They beefed up both front lines. They added Laramie Tunsil and drafted Josh Connerly Jr. And then they went out and added Debo Samuels to take some pressure, hopefully, off of Terry McLaurin. The run defense finished bottom three last season, so they added Wise Jr., Farrell, Kinlaw, and Von Miller. So now the run defense and pass rush just got pretty good. The secondary, holy crap. That secondary has versatility and depth. They drafted Trey Amos, traded for Lattimore last season, and then they signed Jonathan Jones and Will Higgins. And then Mikey St. Ristel is a standout slot corner and will be even better this season. So I loved what Washington did in the offseason. And I mean, we could go on and on and on about how amazing Jaden Daniels is. He's the first quarterback since Mark Sanchez back in 2009 to lead his team to the championship game. And then the quarterback before that was Big Ben back in '04. So he's in very, very rare territory. And like we said, he makes plays on the run. He makes plays off of play action. He has the beautiful deep ball. He's a guy that can do it all, and he's a veteran out there. He's a spoken leader, and the team loves him. So he's going to be a dog for years to come. I don't agree with Logan's prediction of 9-8, 10-7. I think this team got better, but I do have them at 11-6, which is worse than their 12-5 record from last year, and that's only because it's just a way harder schedule compared to last year. And the biggest question is still lack of a game-changing edge rusher. Von Miller's not going to be that game changer.
Mhm.
How old is he now? 36? He's too old.
Yeah,
Um,
35, I believe.
35, yeah. I mean, I love this team, and they're going to be a contender in the playoffs again.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I think that this team will win between 10 in 13 games this year. I'd like to see them right middle of the pack there, 11 or 12, kind of repeating last season. But I already mentioned it, but this team, every hole that they had in their roster, they made some change to attempt to get better. I think Jonathan Jones is an extremely underrated signing. This is one that kind of flew under the radar, and he's going to go out there and line up opposite of Marshawn Lattimore and some of their other guys, and be put in a system where he can succeed. He's a hard hitter, so when those rush attacks come from other teams, he's going to be there. That's kind of his mo is being that corner that
Yeah.
can stop the rush really well. Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. It's going to take some time for him to get adjusted to the league, I think, but he's going to be another solid option that they can throw out there to replace either Jones or Lattimore as a starter, maybe by midseason or maybe next season. But he's going to put up solid stats regardless, I believe. That offensive line getting better with Josh Connerly and Laramie Tunsil. Tunsil's been on two other teams that have had successful O lines at this point, and has served as a fantastic left tackle for years now. Honestly, this team, I see them winning 12 games again, and I
Wow.
think that starts in New York on week one where they play the Giants. I think they can beat the Packers in week two as well. And I think that they've got a relatively easy schedule through the midseason. But then they go on and they play Kansas City and Detroit later in the season. And then they take on Minnesota, which we don't know what uh, they kind of look like yet. We see what they have on paper. That could be a good game down the stretch as well. But yeah, I think 12 wins is a reasonable 11 or 12 wins is a reasonable prediction for them. Will they go back to the NFC Championship? Who knows? The NFC is kind of stacked right now, with good teams, and I think that the team that's going to finish above them in the NFC East this year is going to be their main problem.
No
It's going to be
doubt.
an interdivision thing, and I guess we can move on to them if nobody else has anything to say about the
One
Commanders.
quick thing, like, would you guys be surprised? Let's say that hypothetically they make it to the NFC East Championship or in the NFC championship game. Would you be surprised if the same thing happens? I wouldn't. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles put up 50 on them. Like that
Yeah.
defense, like 30th against the pass and like what you mentioned, 4.8 yards against the run allowed. Like that's tough to overcome, especially with what they did in the offseason. Yeah, they made improvements. Not enough, I don't think. But you can kind of trust Dan Quinn as a defensive minded coach. You know, maybe have some tricks up his sleeves, but I don't know. Depth
No, I
wise,
don't think they'll get blown out. I don't think that they'll allow as
right?
many points this time. I don't think they allow Saquon Barkley to run for three touchdowns and 120 yards this time. However, I do think that the Eagles are ultimately the better team.
Oh yeah.
They have more experience. They have I'll use Xander's words from last week, a Hall of Fame defensive line or defensive core. Um, Built up, maybe one of the best that we've seen since the 2015 Broncos or even the Legion of Boom out there in Seattle a little over a decade ago. But moving on to the Eagles, guys, this is obviously a team that just won the Super Bowl, finished 14-3. There's really not much more that can be said about them. This team around the board is incredible. Offense, defense, special teams, they've got it all. And they have an incredible defense despite some of the losses that they took this offseason, primarily Josh Sweat from who went to Carolina. Milton Williams went to the Cardinals. Darius Slay is on his way uh, to Pittsburgh, and then Avante Maddox is with the Lions now. But they still have a solid core in that secondary and on the defensive line. And the good thing for them is they kept their offense together, with the exception of Mekhi Becton, who went to the Chargers, and Kenneth Gainwell, who went to the Steelers. The offense ranked number 8 in yards per game and second in rushing, thanks to Saquon Barkley having a 2,000 yard season, and they were seventh in scoring. Guys, I don't see any scenario where the Eagles do not win the NFC East next year.
And not only NFC East, I think they win the NFC again.
Yeah.
They're still the team to beat in the NFC, and they proved it last year. I mean, they went 14-3 and they won 14, or they went 14-3 convincingly.
Yeah.
It was belt to ass almost every single dub. The defense, they saw Brandon Graham retire. Hassan Reddick is now in Tampa. Darius Slay in Pittsburgh. Gardner Johnson in Houston. Josh Sweat in Arizona. And Milton Williams in New England. And then I'm pretty sure Fletcher Cox also retired, correct?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
they
yes, you're
lost.
right. Josh Sweat went to did you say Arizona?
Yep.
I think I said he went to Carolina. Yes, he went to Arizona.
He said Williams went to Arizona. I'm like, he's in New
Close.
England.
Yeah.
Opposite side of the
But
map.
they lost a lot of crucial guys on that defensive unit. But they drafted Ty Robinson to replace Milton Williams, and Robinson led the nation in college in quarterback hits. So that is a solid backup to replace Milton Williams. And then, oh my goodness, they go ahead and draft John Campbell at linebacker. That Bond Campbell tandem is going to be
Oh.
ridiculous. And how does Howie get away with it every single draft? He always gets a player that should not have dropped that far, and he scoops them up. And sure enough, they are dogs for the Eagles. So yeah, John Campbell. Oh my God, I'm so pissed that the NFL let Howie do that. And
Well, I'll
then
tell you, they sorry to cut you off. Go ahead and finish what you're saying because this might be a different conversation.
yeah, I was gonna say that in the secondary they still have Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. They're both studs. To replace Darius Slay, I mean, you can expect Khalid Ringo or Adoree Jackson to prove valuable for Philly for that third corner spot. And then you have Sidney Brown, who's coming back fully healthy to be alongside Blankenship at safety. Um, Even though they lost so many guys on defense that were crucial to that Super Bowl run, I still have them going 14-3 again. I mean, that offense is going to be elite again. They, like Max said, they retained everyone except for Mekhi Becton, um, and Gainwell. And
Mhm.
then that defensive unit, although they won't be as lethal as last season, they're still going to be a heavy unit.
Yeah, so the point I wanted to bring up was how does Howie Roseman get away with it? By going ahead and signing these players that he's drafted to extensions prior to the market jumping. Uh, Guys like Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, they're getting they got extensions early on, but in good time where they're not spending as much when the cap gets raised, and they can go out and draft some of these guys, and they just keep their home base so solid that they're able to build this team that they have. Howie Roseman is a genius as a GM with
Oh
the way
yeah.
that he's gone out and signed guys. I just saw a video about how they're the best run organization in the league, and it's true. Just because of what Roseman is able to put together, this is a team that when you look at it, and when we look at it 10 years from now, and we see the players that are on it, we're gonna ask, how the hell did this happen? And it's because Howie Roseman what was able to sign these guys early and keep and lock them into multi-year deals to build this dynasty that I believe that they are creating.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we're gonna look back at this 2024 Eagles team in 10 years, and we're gonna say not only were they the best team in the last 25 years, we're gonna seriously consider them as the best team in the last 30, 40 years. I mean, like I mentioned last week or a couple weeks ago, that was a Hall of Fame defense.
Mhm.
That defense was freaking phenomenal. I mean, you're comparing them to 2015 Broncos status, or no, I don't want to say 2000s Ravens status because no one's gonna fucking replicate
Mm,
it ever.
yeah, not
But
quite.
but they were so damn good, man.
Logan, you got anything?
Yeah, it's hard to poke any holes in this team, honestly. If I had to pick anything, Mekhi Becton, we saw the improvement. Oh, I just saw that went to my default. I'll just talk without it. But you saw the improvement that Mekhi Becton showed when he came from the New York Jets to the Philadelphia Eagles. It was impressive to see. I think it was. I don't want to say this wrong. It was one of the Georgia offensive coordinators. they brought into be in Philadelphia and just really improve the run game. Not only just Saquon Barkley's addition, but the schemes they're running on that offensive line. They're clicking, working well together as a team. And a lot of times you're watching football, that offensive line gets overlooked. So Mekhi Becton leaving, he's a big guy. Like that's the guy who really improved when he got to Philadelphia. And then you're talking about Landon Dickerson, who might have a torn meniscus in his right knee, which he suffered this week. So if he is out for a significant time, with a team that you look at it and you see a bunch of all stars, I mean all pro players, any sort of injury is a big injury.
Yeah, and I think I read somewhere, I forgot where I read it, but there is hope that he can be back by week one, week two.
Did it
So
say completely? Was it something that could repair on its own? I didn't see too much into that. I just was trying to keep close eye on
um,
it.
I haven't heard any like official
Right.
report, but it's just rumors that he could be back by week one, week two. And if that's the case, then it
That's
is something.
huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, guys, I don't see this team losing a lot of games this year. If I go ahead and look at the schedule, I think there's a chance that they can lose one of those Commanders games, maybe at FedEx Field in Maryland. Um, Again, we have to see what the Vikings are made up of. They have one of the best defensive lines in the league going up against the best offensive line in the league. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Um, I think the Rams are also a sneaky team
Oh yeah.
who could make some noise in that game in week three. Um, I don't see the Chiefs beating them actually. The Chiefs, we saw what happened in the Super Bowl. Will they improve on that score? Yeah, more than likely, but I don't think that they have what it takes to beat the Eagles right now. And then week 17 potential Super Bowl matchup where they go and they face the Buffalo Bills at
Yeah.
Highmark Stadium in Buffalo. That is going to be an incredible game. It'll be interesting to see if either team is playing starters by that point. I think the AFC East got a little bit more competitive. I expect that the Patriots are going to put up a decent fight in the division this year, but I still have Buffalo winning it. Will the Eagles lock up the East at that point? It depends on how the Commanders play, in my opinion. Um, but between 13-4 and 14-3 is where I see the Eagles again this season. There's not a lot of teams that really match up well against them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Right.
can see 16-1. I can see 15-2. I think that Bills game. I think Buffalo can get them at the end of the year. But other than that, look at that schedule. The Eagles on paper are better than every single team.
Hmm.
So it's
Absolutely
hard to
right.
count a loss on them.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that Bills game is going to come down to whether the Eagles can stop Josh Allen both through the air and on the ground. We know what Allen's able to do
Yeah,
on the ground. But
we'll talk about
again,
the.
that line.
I was gonna say
Go ahead.
we'll talk about the Bills when they come up, but like the biggest Achilles heel is can they score enough points to where their defense has doesn't have to step up too much.
Or
That
did the
defense is
defense improve
improved.
enough?
It's improved. But we saw what was that? Bills versus the Rams, was it that game? Absolute shootout. You just need Josh Allen to get
Yeah,
6 touchdowns to make something happen. I don't know. That just seems to be the problem in Buffalo every year because Josh Allen has proven to be a top two, if not best quarterback in the NFL.
yeah, and he goes out, he's clutching those down to the wire moments, and
Right.
defense time and time has let him down, and the Eagles do not have that problem. The
Right.
defense comes up so big for them. And Jalen Hurts, I think that was the last point I wanted to get to before we sign off here is Jalen Hurts is not getting enough respect.
No,
He
he
is
is.
not getting enough respect. This guy is a top five quarterback in the league. You can call him a game manager, but when it comes down to it, this guy is a game changer. We saw what he did in the Super Bowl. We saw what he did in the NFC Championship game, throughout playoffs, throughout the regular season. When it matters, this guy comes through. There, he's not a Saquon Barkley merchant. He's still throwing to guys like AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, which I think is why he gets a lot of slack, is because he has such a good team around him and his defense is so good. But since when are we blaming quarterbacks for having good rosters built around them. That's what
Exactly.
I hate. And the disrespect really comes in when you start considering guys like Jane Daniels, a rookie last year, or Justin Herbert as the guy who fills that number five quarterback spot in most people's top fives. This guy just won the Super Bowl MVP, and has been to two Super Bowls in the last 3 years, both of which he has been incredibly competitive and efficient in.
Exactly. Yeah, he is a top five quarterback. I mean, it goes Mahomes or in no random order: Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and then Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
People putting Herbert in their top five, Jaden Daniels in their top five is so fucking funny. Herbert is a regular season merchant. He cannot miss
Mm-hmm.
playoffs. And then Daniels, he just had one good year or one great year as a rookie. It's so early to put him in that top five conversation. But Jalen Hurts deserves his fucking flowers, man. Two Super Bowls in 3 years, and he's been efficient in both, and he's had great regular season success. The dude has been phenomenal, game changer. I mean, Tom Brady, you can go back to Brady's early days. He was a game manager, and he won three fucking Super Bowls, and people weren't giving him shit for it.
Yeah, exactly. Logan, you got anything for Jalen Hurts?
No, no, I think he's a great quarterback, and look at top to bottom in this organization, they've done a great job. Not going to touch on it too much, but think about what they got in that AJ Brown deal, what they had to give up just to get him, and how they
Mhm.
bounced back and used the those draft picks to their advantage. Um, top to bottom, best franchise in the NFL. It's really hard to just give them a loss on that schedule. I think that it's hard to say that they won't be in the Super Bowl next year.
Yep, they'll be the favorites in almost every single game they play. And we'll see how those odds change as we go through the regular season here, which of course we will keep everybody updated on. Um, yeah, I think they are the Super Bowl favorites going into this year. There's not really a team that stacks up well against them, not in the NFC at least. There's a few teams in the AFC who I think could put up a good fight, but ultimately, like you said, Logan, they have the best roster, they have the best team, they're the reigning champions, and they're looking to go back to back. So if nobody else has anything to say, then I guess we'll close out this pod. Thank you everybody for watching this episode of In the Pocket. I'm Max Sturm. That's Xander Cook. That's Logan Martin. Make sure to tune in next week for our next breakdown of an NFL division.